interest. This is something I talked about in a previous video where I showed you how to do the principal times the rate times the time. But when you're talking about companies, they buy and sell on credit. Most of them do. Some people are just so rich they don't have to do that kind of thing anymore. But the majority of companies here in the United States buy and sell on credit. Now, here comes the scenario. We have, say, a retail company, and they want to buy 60 bicycles from a manufacturer so they can sell those bicycles in their store. Now, of course, they're going to pay a wholesale price to do this because, after all, they're going to have to mark up the bicycles in order to sell them to you. After all, the retail place has to pay employees, has to pay power bills, has to pay water bills, you name it, they have to pay for a lot. So, of course, they're going to mark up the price of the bicycles so that they can actually make a profit and pay off their employees and pay off all their expenses. So they go to the manufacturer and they say, look, we're going to buy 60 bicycles off of you for X and Y dollars. But we don't have the cash today. So we want to take them off your hands now, and on X and Y day, we'll finally pay up what we owe you. And so the bicycle manufacturer says, hey, that's no problem. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and let you have those bicycles, but when you pay me back, you not only owe me the X and Y dollars for the bicycles, but you also owe me a little extra for letting you have the bicycles for this period of time, say 60 days. Okay, I'm going to give you 60 days to pay up for these bicycles, but you owe me a little extra because I let you have those bicycles for 60 days without paying for them. That's called interest. Now, let's look at the whole scenario first from the retail perspective and then from the manufacturer's perspective. Okay. From the retail perspective, we have accounts payable, because remember, they bought these bicycles on account. But then we also have interest payable. You can't factor in the price of the bicycles with the price that you're actually going to pay because you basically were borrowing for 60 days. You borrowed the bicycles for 60 days, then you paid for them. Okay? So you have an accounts payable and you have an interest payable to show that you're going to actually pay an extra piece of interest on top of whatever you owed on the bicycles. Now let's look at it from the bicycle manufacturer's perspective. Okay? When they receive the money, they're going to receive the money for the bicycles themselves, but then they're also going to receive the money because they charged the retailer interest because the retailer didn't have the money right on the bat. Okay? He didn't have the money the day he picked up the bicycle, so they get to charge him a little extra interest because he didn't have the money right off the bat. Now, why do you keep these separate? Well, especially in the manufacturer's business, because this is the manufacturer here. What if the guy was able to pay that money back in 30 days instead of 60? Well, that's going to change the interest. It really is. Because now we're going to be collecting 30 days of interest instead of 60 days. So that's why we keep the interest part of this separate from the principal. This is where you put the principal. This is where you put the interest. Okay? So, to give you a better idea, let's say the retailer bought the 60 bicycles off of the manufacturer. And the retailer says, hey, I will pay you 18 grand for those bicycles, but I can't do it today. I got to do it in 60 days. And the manufacturer says, well, sure. But in addition to that $18,000 you're going to pay us for the bicycles, you're also going to pay us 10% interest for those 60 days. Because after all, we're basically loaning you the bicycles until you come up with the money to pay for them. He says, sure. We have to wait 60 days before we can show this as a profit. Basically, we haven't made anything on the sale until you pay us that money, so you're going to owe us a little interest on top of it. He says, sure. So 60 days later, the retailer comes back, he pays the 18 grand for the bicycles, and then on top of that he pays the 10% interest, because he basically was selling these bicycles on a loan. Alright? So, that's how that works. Now, if the retailer comes back in 30 days instead of 60 and says, hey, I do now have the money, then that changes everything. So, like I said, when it comes to the principal, you put that in one account. When it comes to the interest, you put it in a separate one. Because that interest could change and the principal won't. Alright. I will tell you more in a future video, so stay tuned.